Toronto's police chief said today he accepts the verdict of the jury in the murder trial of Umar Zameer. Over the weekend, Zameer was found not guilty in the death of Toronto police officer Jeffrey Northrup. After the acquittal on Sunday, the chief said he was hoping for a different outcome. Here's what he said earlier today.
The context of the totality of the circumstances, what I was trying to convey is that I accept the jury's findings. And we are an organization that's grieving and trying to work through finding some path towards closure. I think I really appreciated the opportunity yesterday to clarify. And let me say it again, I do accept the jury's findings, always have.
Ontario Provincial Police will conduct a review of the Toronto Police Service over concerns raised about officer testimony during the trial. Northrup died when Zameer ran over him with his car. The officers testified Northrup was standing in the middle of the laneway with his hands up when he was hit, but security video showed that to be incorrect. For more on this, I want to bring in Michael Kempa. He's an associate professor of criminology at the University of Ottawa. Thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
So we were just hearing these they sound like contrasting comments, although the police chief says this is what I meant on Sunday as well when he was clarifying his position today and also yesterday in a statement too. But I wonder what you make of him having to come out and make this statement to say that he does support and believe in the verdict that was made.
Well, it is important that he clarified, and I'm glad that he did so. If you say that I share the feelings of my members that we would have liked a different outcome, it does sound as though you were looking for a conviction, even though that's not where the evidence took everybody. So clearing up now, it was an emotional whole set of circumstances that's gone on for many years. It's understandable, perhaps, that he misspoke. It's very welcome that he has clarified, but I think even more important now, we want a very careful and very thorough investigation, review of everything that's happened, conducted by the OPP. Those actions are even more important than the words of the chief.
Yeah, so this is going to be this external review by the Ontario Provincial Police, looking into the testimony given by the police officers at this trial. Some concern that even the judge talked about regarding collusion and not being truthful in their testimony. What do you make of that?
Extremely important. There's different levels of collusion. The judge referred to the jury. She said, it seems that these police officers may have engaged in a note-taking party where they all sat together to put together their account in writing of what happened that night. Police officers aren't meant to do that. They're meant to take their notes independently from one another for the reason that if there are discrepancies, that's something that the Crown can then pick up on. Prosecutors see that and they ask the police, what about these discrepancies? And you have less likely of a high chance of an inappropriate prosecution. If the police actually went further and deliberately misrepresented the facts of the case, that starts to become not only a professional mistake, but also potentially a criminal matter. I'm not sure if it went that far. That's not what the judge was getting to. Mm-hmm. That's what the OPP must look into.
If it is found that there was collusion, what sort of efforts will the police need to make in order to, I'm even just thinking about public confidence in them and in this whole, situation, the process, the legal process that was here, that went down here. How do they deal with something like that?
Well, the first thing is professional standards. As I say, you must always take your notes independently. Second of all, we understand human memory is actually quite malleable. When you're in a stressful situation, such as seeing somebody or your partner being hit by a vehicle, very often we don't remember things accurately. And that's where it's so important to make sure that any discrepancies in the notes of officers are addressed. And the Crown, prosecutors, have a responsibility to push the police on any discrepancies. So when evidence comes forward from video footage, from experts in reconstructing accidents that provide contrasting interpretations, It is the job of the Crown to push back on the police and say, are you sure your account is accurate? Crown prosecutors are not there. They do not exist to nail accused people. They are there also to act as agents for justice.
What do you think of how high profile this case was and how we had politicians weighing in on it before, any evidence was made public? It was the premier, the mayor talking about weighing in on the idea that Umar Zameer had been granted bail, and they hadn't looked at the reasoning for it. It appears that the judge had. There was a publication ban on those reasons, but I understand you could actually go and access them to see them. They just couldn't be published. But when it comes to the public interest, because an officer was involved in this tragedy, what sort of pressure does that put on the system, on the Crown? Are there safeguards to make sure that they're not actually feeling that pressure and able to do what needs to be done to question, like you said, the police officers when they need to?
So the pressure would be extreme, and the statements made by the Premier, the Mayor of Toronto at the time, John Tory, and the Mayor of Brampton, Patrick Brown, were extremely damaging in that, as is obvious, they were made on the basis of, at best, partial information. And they were very forceful in their statements, saying that it was an outrage or disgusting that Mr. Zameer had been granted bail by the judge. Now, that either reveals a lack of understanding of how bail actually works, in the sense that we only hold people on remand or deny bail if they pose further risk to the community and are a flight risk, which Mr. Zameer was neither at the time of his bail hearing, or a willful misrepresentation of how bail ought to work. So in other words, if you don't have the information, say very little, simply say we're looking at the administration of justice to carry this case through. Of course, our hearts go out to the deceased, Jeffrey Northrup, the constable who was run over. We'll reserve judgment until the accused, Mr. Zameer in this case, would have had his day in court.
A case that has stretched over multiple years here, Michael, finally coming to a close, but still lots of questions. So we'll be watching out for the answers that come out of those investigations. Thanks so much for giving us your perspective today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kylie.